Good morning, everybody, and thank you. And I'm delighted to be here on the first official Tweet Up. I'm hoping, or I'd like to think, that we could be back here in 10 years' time celebrating the 10th anniversary of its inauguration. And you know, an awful lot of my speech and conversation is about creativity, and the mere fact that I look around the room and none of you guys really know each other, a lot of you have never met, shows that there is a lot of people here today in Birr thinking outside the box. Well, why am I here? And I thought about that, and I'm here because I have some information for you, which is, I believe, quite important. And it's information that I have acquired predominantly because I opened my mouth about a certain subject. And because I was, led down a certain road after opening my mouth, I sort of had this self-education, which is now all starting to make sense in my mind. So I have some news for you. I have some information for you, which I think is relevant about business in this country into the future. So I'm hoping today that when we leave Birr, that you go away feeling, not just because of me, but because of the work that you're going to do, a little bit more inspired, a little bit more educated, a little bit more motivated. Or my own personal hope would be that one or two people can go away today and have a little bit more clarity of thought, maybe a little bit of peace of mind. I had 60 people in terms of employment. We were really good at marketing. We were actually better known for marketing than we were for cars. We had the best of youth working in our organisation. We worked very hard. We were enthusiastic, and it was fun to go to work. And I was about 8 weeks into my latest venture in Kilkenny. And I know an awful lot of you have heard the story, and I don't want to really go back on what was shepherd's pie, but basically what happened is that once I sort of sprinkled it off and opened it up, away we went. Little did I discover, or did I know at that point in time, that within a certain period of time, Lehman Brothers would go under, and this tsunami that we've all been living through would happen, and it would have the effect that it had. But the effect that it had on me is that forecourt activity stopped. People start coming to our business, and our cash flow dried up, and our financial partners, banks, 3 of them, effectively, broadly asked for their money back. You can't Google real, practical, rational advice on what to do. No more than I could in 2009. And I found myself losing weight, and I found myself frenzied 7 days a week. I won't pay him, I can't pay him. If I don't lodge that, I can write that check and stall it for 3 days. 24/7, my mind just became fritzed with survival. I would sit in my kitchen having Sunday dinner with my kids, and they would be talking to me, and I'd have a glossy smile on my face because I was thinking about tomorrow. I couldn't get warm in the summer of 2009. It was freezing. I just couldn't do anything. I couldn't communicate, I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep, even though I slept. When I was sleeping, I was working. I knew when I was asleep that I was dreaming, but I couldn't wake myself up. I ran through the streets of Clonmel with €3,000 of a lodgement because the bank told me, get it in or we're going to bounce everything back. I felt broken. I felt absolutely and utterly in bits. And when I walked into my house, my 2 children were sitting at the table and they were watching cartoons on the television. It was a really cold winter's evening, and they had 2 plates of shepherd's pie in front of them. My son at the time was 9, my daughter was 12, and I walked up to the back of the chair and I put my hands on the chair, and they were sitting there, and they glanced over at me and they said, "Hey Dad," casually, and then back to Scooby-Doo or whatever was on TV. And at that moment, and there's a point here, and I'm sorry if people have heard this story, but I need to tell this story for people to understand. At that moment, and I apologize in advance for my bad language for all the ladies that are here, but this is really important. This is a really important story, right? At that moment, I saw unconditional love in the eyes of my 10-year-old child and trust. And I was the asshole that was going to make him walk into the schoolyard in 2 days' time with this big, huge showroom that we had in Clonmel that was going to be shut down. I was the one that made my kids face the kids in the schoolyard to say, oh, your dad's bust, you've no money. My decisions. I don't do this bullshit that the banks, squeeze money. The banks never gave me anything that I didn't ask for. And sometimes I asked twice and 3 times. I borrowed the money. And what snapped in me was that I understood that my responsibility in life before anything to do with banks is to be a father, it's to be a husband, it's to be a provider, and that I better get my finger out of my backside tomorrow and go out and do something that's going to provide shepherd's pie for tomorrow's dinner, because I didn't have 10 cents at the time. And when he was asleep that night, and the rest of my family were asleep that night, I walked around my house absolutely just in shock at where I was in my life. And I knew, because of the pain in my chest, that if I didn't grab hold of it, I'd have a heart attack or a stroke. I genuinely believed that's where I was in my mind. Then who would pay the price? Not the banks, but my wife, my young kids. So there and then at 4 o'clock in the morning, looking at my 10-year-old asleep, looking at my daughter asleep, I said, I'm not doing this. And we know the story, which was I decided that all I want to do is get to Friday night. I want to have a Chinese takeaway, watch a DVD and a glass of wine with my wife and go to bed in a warm bed, and that is all that I want. Everything else can go, and I'm going to make the decision now to leave it go, to end this miserable existence that I had put myself in, to end this fight for survival. My focus tomorrow morning was about tomorrow's shepherd's pie and about arriving at the weekend with my roof over my head. So I was going to start fighting back. And if I fought back and lost everything but managed to arrive at the point that I've just described, I had succeeded. And anything else that I gained along the way, for me, was going to be a success. I believe the last time our country was gripped the way it's gripped right now is the famine. And I do believe that there is a responsibility of every person in this room to do one thing. And I wanted this to be my one thing. I wanted my kids, or their kids, in 40 years' time to say, that time in Ireland, my dad or my granddad did do something. Do you have a viable business? Do you have accurate, timely management information? Money accounts, management accounts? Do you research? Do you travel? Do you go away and spend a week away looking at concepts and ideas? Creativity and the lack of creativity is destroying business in this country. Every day of the week. If you own a restaurant and you're in this room, when last did you spend a week travelling to different parts of Ireland, to different restaurants in your hometown? Indeed, when last did you leave the country and go away with the sole objective of coming back with 3 or 4 ideas that you can implement in your business? If you're a florist, when last did you order flowers somewhere? When last did you visit America and look at what they're doing in that sector in America? The point I'm making is that we have all become so punch drunk from coping with where we are in business. We have forgotten how to actually drive our business. We've become the dead anchor in our business as opposed to the beating heart of our business. Could I say this to you? There are 3 issues with commerce in Ireland right now. Number 1, there is a natural recession and seepage, and footfall on the ground in the high street isn't as good as it was. Quite clearly, people are feeling the breeze because of disposable income. The second issue is us. We're struggling to cope. We're struggling to understand what to do next to stimulate activity. The third issue in business today is the internet. Tesco and the internet are sucking the life out of every high street in every town in Ireland. I have managed to achieve what the Irish motor industry said was impossible. I have managed now, with a new concept, to get people to buy cars off of me without ever visiting me, without ever meeting me, without me even having the car, to pay 50% of it in advance over the telephone. The second biggest purchase of your life. If I had stood up in 2007 and had said to the Irish motor industry, this is a concept that I'm going to roll out, they would have laughed at me. We introduced a concept called WeSourceAnyCar.com. You're busy, the kids need hurling, ballet, you're on the move 24/7. We wanted to do something different. This demonstrates creativity for you for a second. We wanted it to be different. When you sit down and do all your Google searches on CarZone and all that, we wanted to stand out. So let's give it a weird name, wesourceanycar.com. Well, what's that mean? Let's go into it and have a look. Well, okay, so they go get the car for you. Then they ring us up and we say, listen, Jimmy, you're very busy, your wife's busy, you're working tell me what you want. What's the year, the make, the model, the colour, the mileage? What's your budget? What have you seen? Where have you been? Right, give me 2 days, I'll come back with some photographs and stuff. And all of a sudden our deliveries were national over the last 18 months. This is what saved our business. WeSourceAnyCar.com has people genuinely in contact with us as I stand here today, telling us we want a silver Nissan Qashqai, 50,000 miles, we spend 13 to 14,000 euros, and I will come back to them and we'll say, here's the car, here's an email photograph, we're going over to buy it now. And the people are giving 50% of it in advance before we import it from the United Kingdom, and here it sits, and the first time I meet the person is when they come and collect it. If I can get people to do that with the second biggest purchase of their life, and you own a shop in Portlaoise or Wexford, drapery shop, shoe shop, florist, and you're not engaging with online business, you're dead. And my message is that I'm here to tell you that if you're struggling in business and you have a viable business, there is a way of dealing with that. There is a way of resolving that. If you own 3 properties and you're in negative equity and they're tearing your life apart, there is a way of dealing with that. There is a mechanism. Did anybody teach any of you guys how to deal with the banks in 2005, 6, 2002 when you went and borrowed money originally? No, they didn't. You didn't need to be educated because you could just go and get it in truth. Now, your communication with banks now is an educational process, and it's a process that I've just come through over the last 18 months. And it's about communication. It's about transparency. It's about honesty. It's not about cute-whore syndrome. It's not about going in and facing down the bank. I listen to these introductions that I get on television and stuff. I told the banks to piss off. I didn't tell the banks. I got thick with the banks and I got into a debate with the banks and I argued with them. But what I'm trying to say to you is engage, communicate, resolve the problems, think creatively. We are all here today to communicate. And my message to you is that my story really begins from when the book was launched. From meeting people all over the country, from people coming to see me because of the difficulties. And the one common thread is that people do not know how to resolve their issues with the bank or with their business. And I say to everybody, you must be an active participant in your own rescue. You must decide where you want to be and what it is that you need to achieve, or what it is that you need to do to achieve that goal. If a property portfolio is weighing you down, there are ways of dealing with that. If your business is viable, but you don't have enough cash, there are ways of dealing with that. In truth, folks, for all the conversations that I've had around the country, the one thing that I can tell you that's consistent with every message is that the lack of communication amongst people in this country is quite astonishing. So my message today, finally, is we are living in a period where you now must re-educate yourself on how to be in business going forward. You must continuously research, innovate, and without the lifeblood of creativity, you're dead. And, I know you guys are all into computers and all that, because they're all over the place. I'm just saying to you, there is a future out there and we can actually do okay. And as a result of the calling of people, I've opened a thing in Clonmel called Insight, which is, I believe, a first. It's where business people can come and talk with me on a one-to-one, and I can take your problem and tell you how I would fix the problem. I'm not a professional, I'm not trained, but I've gone through a process of losing it all, fighting back, dealing with the banks, and I want to take my experience over the last 3 years and I want to share it with business people that are in trouble, because guys, we're the people that are going to lay the seeds of the foundation for this country going forward. I'm working with a woman at the moment that's 5 months pregnant. I said to her yesterday, please God, when the baby is born in 15 years from today, that child is going to be, almost ready to come out of school. It's going to go like that. The decisions that we make in business now, the decisions that this government makes, how we handle mortgage write-off, negative equity, and all that other stuff is key. So get out and talk to politicians, and get out and talk to each other, and get out and stand up and start the fight back, not in a militant way, but be decisive, be brave, be bold, be creative. And remember that the banks can't fight all of us. Physically, it's just not possible. Financially, it's impossible. We're going to survive this. And I'll leave you on a positive. And it just shows you how you can take a negative and turn it into a positive. This month last year, in my rehabilitation, one of the major banks in this country were having that conversation with me about properties and, right? Next Friday, February 3rd, I start working with them. They've hired me. And here's the good news, and it's not known yet. Because there is a committee in that bank that have come together of decent people. This hasn't hit the headlines yet, but it will. Decent people who recognise that the bank need to interact with you guys in a dignified and respectful way, and that you and your kids are the future of their bank. And this group wants to be known in 50 years' time as the group that took this well-known Irish bank and made the bold decisions to put it back on the map. And I'm saying to you today, there is a change of ethos within the banking sector. Not all of them, but at least 2 or 3 of them. And when they came and knocked on my door and said, will you come work with us? Try not to laugh here. And educate our senior staff on how to interact with the people on the other side of the desk in a proactive and dignified fashion. I say yes. I say yes, I will. And I do it because I can affect change within that bank, and that bank can then affect change within our business community. And if our business community improves, our lifestyle improves, our communities improve, our family structure improves. So there is change. And from 3 years ago, when banks were chasing people all over the country, to listening to what I'm saying right now, there is a change of ethos within the banks. It's softening. The healing process is about to begin. And I hope that I can affect change in that regard. So thank you very much for inviting me here. And I know that's a long-winded story. I'm just trying to say to you that we're on our own, and you got to do it your own way. And if you're creative enough, and if you're brave enough, and if you're bold enough, and you stand up to the intimidation and the pressure and all of that, we will survive. And I'm more than willing at any point in time to share my message on a one-to-one with anybody that needs to do that. I have a website which is called georgemorton.com. You don't drown by falling in the water. You drown by staying there. That probably sums up the entire speech today. And life never stops moving forward. Stay focused. Never slow down because of regrets. Smile, forgive, forget, and keep moving. Thank you very much.